Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 80th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast and a continuation of our Female Entrepreneur Showcase Month. And today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship with an AfroTouch. And to join me is Georgina Fihosy. Georgina is a pharmacist and the creative behind AfroTouch Design, an Afrocentric brand producing diverse hand-finished greeting cards and stationery items based on African print fabrics. AfroTouch Design was founded 4 years ago whilst Georgina was on maternity leave. With a baby on one side and a laptop on the other, she was unable to find a greetings card for a friend that represented African culture. Disappointed and driven to fill that gap in the market, she used some fabric, a piece of card, and created her own, and hence AfroTouch Design was born. Her products are now stocked in independent retail stores across the UK, and more recently she became the first female Black-owned greeting card publisher to be stocked by Waterstones Bookshop, and more power to her. This is fantastic. She hopes to share her story with women juggling a career, growing a business whilst raising kids, and inspire them to follow their own passions. And Georgina, being the wonderful person she is, she's also offering all you fantastic listeners a discount code today, DM10, that's D for diverse, M for minds, of course, DM10, to receive 10% off the product range. So kind, and it's just why I am so excited to have her on the show. So Georgina, a huge welcome to the show.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So Georgina, I know the story about AfroTouch Designs, and I've bought some beautiful notebooks and planners from you, but I think it'd be really lovely for the listeners to hear in your words how you started AfroTouch Designs.
Yeah, sure. So it was back in 2015. I was on maternity leave from my job in the NHS as a pharmacist. I was on maternity leave with my son, my second child. And I was looking for a card for a friend who'd also just had a baby. And I went on the high street, couldn't find anything online. And she was Nigerian heritage. And I wanted something that was going to reflect her culture and this beautiful occasion and celebration that she was going through. Couldn't find anything. So I decided that I was just going to get some paper that we had in the house. I really love African fabric. So I got some fabric. I cut it into a baby buggy, stuck it all together and gave it to her. And she really, really loved it. And then I think it was about a year later, on my son's first birthday party. He's born in February, so he's going to be 6 next month. I can't believe it. At his first birthday, I set up a little stall at the back of his party, and I had made some Valentine's Day cards, again with African fabric, and I sold out. I just sold them to friends and family at the party. And I thought, you know what, there's something in this. You know, there's something about the beauty of African fabric, about representation and culture that people really like. So it kind of started from there, and I started as Special Touch Design at that time. That's what the business was called, and then I rebranded in 2019 to AfroTouch Design. And I think at that point it was because I really knew at that point who my customer base was, who I was trying to serve, and I really wanted it to be clear that, you know, the cards had that Afro touch, and that's why I decided to rename and brand the business as AfroTouch Design, and it's just been growing from there, really.
And your things are absolutely beautiful. So it's that phrase, and I use that as well. There's clearly something in this, that we do things from the heart. We can do things with passion because we believe in it. And then suddenly it really takes off in an unexpected way. And I also often say that destiny comes and finds you, doesn't it?
Definitely. I mean, I've always kind of been quite entrepreneurial. I've always wanted to do something for myself. I've always wanted to build something for myself. But I never really knew what that was. And I've always been quite creative. I'm not an artist by profession. I'm not trained. But I've kind of used, you know, what's been out there just to learn how to do certain things. So I had no idea about the greeting card industry. But the beauty of the internet is that you have access to almost anything. Knowledge is out there if you just seek it. And so I was able to just learn as I have gone along. And if you were to look at the cards that I'd made at the beginning and to what they are now, it's been a journey, and they're very, very different to what they were when I first started.
And it's that thing about carrying on iteration and improvement, but it's not just cards you do, is it? So maybe you want to talk about the other products you have available on AfroTouch Designs?
Yeah, so the cards are kind of the signature product, but I realised quickly early on that cards are quite a low unit cost item. So in order to actually help increase make it a bit more profitable, I decided to use some of those kind of signature designs I'd put on the cards and put them on things like mugs. My second product was the mugs. So I make affirmation mugs that have African fabric on the front with an image and then positive affirmation phrase on the back. So I do those, and then I branched into more stationery based items, so planners and to-do lists, and there's a whole wealth of things on there. So it's basically a stationery and giftware brand.
And that point about representation, I remember when I've bought some planners. I love them. They're really lovely, really user-friendly and beautiful to look at. And I did a post saying, who loves stationery? I love stationery growing up, and look at these beautiful designs. And my friend phoned me, and she's from Ghana, and her kids are brought up here. And she said, you are so naughty. And she said, I've spent 40 minutes on that website. I love the sweatshirts. I love all the things. She said, I can see my daughter in all of this. And just the power of people being able to see themselves in the products. It's a business, of course, and you mentioned that you've always been entrepreneurial, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's about, for me, it's about serving my community, and it's about making visible what's invisible. So it's really about showcasing the beauty of West Africa, and just being, especially because I've got 3 children, and my eldest is 8. And it's been so difficult to find things that, represent her, that she can look at and see her in the things that she sees in her everyday life. So one of the cards that I have is called Amaya. That's her name. I've called it Amaya. It's a little girl with a balloon. And it's just a reminder that, that there are other little girls like her, and she should be able to see herself in greeting cards and magazines and all that kind of thing. So I really think it's really important that I do. My business serves the community that I'm from, but also it kind of raises awareness, because you don't necessarily just have to be a Black person to buy
absolutely
a card that has a little Black child on or West African fabric. Everybody has friends, everybody has colleagues, everybody has somebody that is different to them that would really appreciate that. But even if it's not that, you might still want to give a card that has African fabric to a Caucasian friend. So it's about making things available for everybody. And I think it's something that's really important to me.
Thank you, Georgina. I couldn't agree more, obviously. So you are a clinical pharmacist as well, and you have a job in being a clinical pharmacist at the moment too. So how do you feel, what made you train as a clinical pharmacist, and how does that link with your business, do you think?
Yes. So I'm from a very strong Nigerian family. My mum was Nigerian and my father was Nigerian. And we've always been very academic as a family. So when I got I did my GCSEs and I got to college, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I was thinking about, maybe going into, I could have done sports, I could have done psychology, I could have done quite a number of things. And I knew that I never wanted to do medicine, but I was always kind of really loved science. And an uncle of mine was a pharmacist. So I just spoke to him and I said, what's pharmacy all about? And I thought, oh, that sounds really good. It's like I can help people without actually having to, cut people open and do those sorts of things. I thought that that's the only thing that doctors did. So I thought, oh, well, I could give them the medicines and that would help them feel better. So I decided when I was 18 that was what I wanted to do. And I just went from there. And I went to the University of Portsmouth and did my undergraduate there, and then I worked in London and trained as a pharmacist, and I did that for almost 14 years in the hospital, and then I decided to transition into a pharmaceutical company, which is where I work as a strategic account manager now.
And how do you have the time to do both? Because that's a big job. I mean, and also being a CEO of this wonderful company.
Yeah, it's hard going, but I think that when you have a passion for something and when you are ambitious, you kind of just make it work. And I've always worked. I've never had a period of time where I've worked part-time. I've always worked full-time, even after having the kids. So I took a year off for maternity leave, went back to work, went in straight back in at full-time. But for me, it's just about trying to fit everything in with the 24 hours that we have, making sure that that I have enough sleep. But I always feel that, if you wake up early enough, you can get stuff done before the kids wake up. You can do a little bit after the kids have gone to bed. And I love what I do. I love both aspects of my life. I love working as a pharmacist within the pharmaceutical industry, but I love also building a brand. And so because I've got a passion for both, I make it work.
Yeah, well, it's kind of shaming me because I'm not an early riser anymore. After years of commuting and waking up at 4:45, I just can't do it anymore. So that's your secret. That's really helpful. And so we've talked about the term entrepreneur, and we're showcasing in March female entrepreneurs for International Women's Month. So what would you say that term entrepreneur means to you, given that you also have a full-time job?
So for me, I think it's about being creative, and it's about having that ability to innovate and use those innovative ideas to make a difference to the community. It's more than just working for yourself. It's more than just making money. I think it's about having a passion for something and just watching it and building it, making it grow. Just like you have a child and you want that best for your child. You want it to grow. You want your child to nurture your child. It's a bit like that for me. So yeah, I think that's what entrepreneurship is for me.
That's a lovely definition, and I can really resonate with the fact that you said it's not just about making money, it's about that passion. And I think for me that's the difference with not just female-owned businesses, but solopreneurs who are from global majority and Black backgrounds, diaspora communities who really want to input. I mean, for me, one of my main drivers is to never have a manager again. But everyone's different. But that whole thing about what is the ripple effect, what's the bigger impact? So I'm imagining there are going to be some listeners thinking, what can I do? And so what do you think some of the biggest challenges are for Black and global majority women if they want to start their own business?
So I think sometimes it's not being taken serious. I think, like I've said before, I think we're as a group we are visible because of what we look like, but we're also invisible. And often our voices are diminished. So, and that's just I think that's often the hardest hurdle, is just being heard, just having our ideas heard and being listened to. And then on the other side of it, it's we don't get access to funding and things like that to help us. So often that's a challenge. And I think it's being a woman already is a challenge, but then being a woman of color is then an additional challenge because of all those things. So I think if we can try and if for me, I'm mindful of that, but then I don't let that stop me. So I will still reach out for help. I will still have conversations with people. And then it's as a result of those conversations, I then decide what my next move should be. So it's about not, yes, we understand that that's the current situation, but let's not let that stop us from really doing the things that we are passionate about and what we want to do to get the best out of our lives.
Definitely. And what you're saying there really, for me, summarizes a lot of cultural capital. So yes, we might not have access to, if we need a lot of funding, everyone's business model is different. I don't know about you, if you received funding. I just bootstrapped and I saved a lot of my salary to then jump and go full time into my business. That's the way I wanted to do it. I didn't want funding, so I couldn't even face looking for it. And everyone will be different, but it's our cultural capital. So our networks, the languages we speak. So that could be that we speak English, but we speak English in a way that that means we have access to different markets. So I think we need to be mindful of that as well. Also thinking about our products. So our products have cultural capital and value. We do things in a different way. They come from our own lens. So that step-by-step approach and not knowing that the barriers are there, we have to be realistic, but that not putting a damper on our bigger vision and knowing that it's all workable and that we can handle it. So what do you think workplaces can do? And I think we don't know what the future is going to look like in terms of the workplace. If I think about offices, are they going to be office space, blended work, people maybe going part-time due to financial restrictions? So if I flip that and think about that more positively, I mean, what do you think workplaces can do to encourage their staff, particularly global majority Black women of colour, to follow their passions and also perform at work in a blended way?
So I think it's really important that organizations allow people to be their authentic selves at work. I think if you create an environment that allows people not to hide their passions and hide what they do, I think it can also be a positive for that organization, especially if it is entrepreneurial. There's so many skill sets, so many things that those people have that they can also bring to your business or to your company that will also drive business for the company. I think there's something around enabling that whole flexible working agenda and just empowering people to be accountable for their time and just make sure and just be free to deliver on a project or deliver on a job in the way that's going to be good for the company, but also in a way that's going to enable that individual to actually perform to their best if they have the time to do it in the way that they can do it. I'm very fortunate for me. Yes, I work full time, so my contracted hours are 9 to 5, but I can actually work in whichever way I choose as long as I deliver on my objectives. So I think that's helpful, and I think that does empower when you're able to work that way. It makes you as an individual want to do the best for whatever company that you're working for, but also because you have that flexibility, then you're able to still meet the passions that you have. So I think organizations just need to be a bit more open to allowing people to work more flexible. And I think working from home has opened up organizations' eyes to that, because I think people are now aware that actually you can get your job done and work from home. You don't have to be in front of somebody else to get the job done. You don't have to be in a room full of people to get your work done. Zoom and all the other, technological things that we've been using over the last couple of months have been really helpful. I'm in a job where I have to speak to people across the country. So I can do that. I don't have to travel, however miles to Southampton to go and see a consultant. I can do that from the comfort of my home and still have that same valuable conversation. I think it's about just recognizing that opportunity is there, and it shouldn't make the individual that works for your organization less capable.
And it links to trusting your staff, essentially. Why wouldn't you? Because it makes sense, as you said, for the individual, for the company to think about customers, client experience. And if people are happy, they're going to put more effort in, and it's going to be high quality work as well.
Definitely.
So Georgina, as a parent to 3 children, you mentioned a CEO and a strategic account manager. You mentioned about getting up early and making sure there's time. But I really want to know, how do you look after yourself and your own mental health? And are you happy to share your top 3 tips?
Yeah, sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is not easy. And my children are still very young. So my eldest is 8, and then I've got a 5-year-old and a very active 3-year-old. So I find that I have to wait. I've got no option but to wake up early, because that's the time where I'm often up about 5 o'clock, and the kids usually get up about 7. So that's 2 hours of just time for myself. So normally I might do some exercise, or I'll do, if I need to do some work, I'll just spend some time doing some work, or I'll listen to a podcast or do something just in that time. That's for me. And that usually just sets me up for the day. And then, so I also might do a little bit of journaling, a bit of, writing or whatever it is. And then the kids, it's just getting the kids ready, getting the day together. I always try and plan the night before if I can. So I usually know what's going to happen the next day. I've written it all down, but it doesn't always go to plan. So it's about being flexible with those things. But I tend to just make sure that I have that time to myself for that first part of the day, because it's very rare that I'm going to be able to get it at any other time in the day, because the kids are full on. And then often I try and make sure the kids are in bed by about 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So that then between 8 and about 10:30, it's again myself and my husband's time, and then we can choose, what we want to do for the evening. If I need to do stuff on the business, then it's between that time. So it's really about being organised, being flexible when you have to be flexible when you've got 3 kids. Sometimes they don't want to go to bed at 8 o'clock, chatting in their room until 10 o'clock at night. But I think it's if the intention is there, and if everybody in the household is aware of that, I think it can work. But definitely for self-care, it's that early time in the morning when it's just me. I don't have to think about the children. I don't have to think about anything other than myself. That's helps my mental health.
Oh yeah, that's super helpful. And this is it. This is why everyone needs your beautiful planners, your to-do list, which I use, and you can track your amount of water that you drink. And I love your bigger planners as well. So it's what is it? They're not they're a bit bigger than A4, aren't they? And you put it on your desk, and it's a page. You can have a page a day, and it's really brilliant because you can plan everything out, Georgina. So that's sharing some of the magic. And please do go and have a look at the AfroTouch website for that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to just look at your day and try where possible to plan. Just be mindful of the things that are going to go on through the day, and just have it in front of you so that you're aware. And I think structure, especially now that we're in this lockdown time and we're homeschooling, we're doing all the things. So I'm homeschooling, I'm working, I'm building the business. And if I didn't have a little bit of structure, I think that would really affect me. So it helps just to know what the day is going to look like on a day-to-day.
Yeah, and thinking about your vision then, you mentioned building the business. What is your vision for your career as a clinical pharmacist and AfroTouch Designs?
So I think for me, I mean, I love being a pharmacist and I love working for my organisation.
Yeah.
But my business is my baby. And I think that eventually I will come to the point where I will probably go down to part-time and then do more with the business. I eventually do want to run it full-time. I'd love to have I'm working towards having a studio where everything will be done in-house. And just taking on a small team. And obviously in order to do that, I need to dedicate more time. So there will become a point where there's definitely no way I'm going to be able to work full time. But I think at the moment it's working for me. I think it's really important to have multiple streams of income. And it's not just because you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't mean, well, I'm just going to give up my job and do that. But sometimes that's not the best route to go. You need to plan. And you need to make sure that you've got the funds and the savings behind you if that's the route that you're going to go down to support you. So I would never, I think at this point, unless it was until I've reached the goal of the time frame for being able to leave my job, I'm not going to do that because it's important for me to have that income from my salary at the moment.
And that's the thing, everyone has a different journey. I was talking about this with some entrepreneurs, some startups, and for some people it is to just jump. It took me 2 years to go full time into my business, and I often get asked, oh, how do you do it? And I don't think there's a blueprint, is there? Everyone's different. Everyone will have a different signature or pathway to entrepreneurship. And I think it's what works for you. And I think that's really important to mention. I was very quiet at the beginning of the first lockdown, and I thought, oh, am I going to have to go back to getting an admin job, which I would have done, but I was really fortunate I didn't have to do it. But that's the thing, it changes, it ebbs and flows, and it's your point again about being flexible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody has different commitments, so and I think it also people start their entrepreneurial journey at different times in their lives. Some people start really young, some people start a lot later on, so everybody's circumstances are different, and you never want to start it in a situation which it's not going to be fruitful because you haven't planned it well. And you need to be sensible. So, and that's one of the things that I always say is that make sure that you have a buffer, so that there are periods of time where there's no money coming in, you're not struggling, and even if it means that, okay, you might need to take on some part-time work, you might need to do those things just to keep you afloat, then be open to that. But like I said, there's no blueprint, like you said, it's everybody's journey is different.
And it's just been such a pleasure to speak with you. I just want to mention to our listeners, we haven't met face to face. Georgina very kindly agreed to be a guest from me waxing lyrical about her wonderful AfroTouch design. So Georgina, if people want to know more about you and the work that you do, and they want to connect with you, and these will all be in the show notes, but how can they do that?
So my products are on www.afrotouch.design. You can find me on all socials at AfroTouch Design, so that's Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you want to talk to me directly, you can go through my LinkedIn page, which is Georgina Fihosy, or you can find it also at AfroTouch on LinkedIn. And I'm always open to discussing how I've built this journey, how I've built this brand. I'm really, my passion is about inspiring women who are in similar situations to be able to do that with kids, with running a business and working full time. I think it's we can do anything. We're such magical human beings. So that's one thing that I like to share.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honour, such helpful insights, deep knowledge in such a succinct way. What a joy, Georgina. And I can't thank you enough. And I think listeners are going to love this. And everyone take care, and we will see you in the next episode.
Take care. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.